That's all right. Hello, 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 everybody, and thank you for coming back to another The Daily Edge. A little bit of news, a little bit of motivation. Um, kind of getting on here late today. I'm your host, Andrew Leach. Thanks for joining. Getting in a little late. Didn't feel good last night. I think these solar flares that can't hit Earth or whatever. Hair looks like shishties too. But oh well. God, my heart hurt last night. I wasn't feeling good. Felt cold, pain. I don't know. Weird. Then woke up this morning and I didn't know nothing about these. Well, I knew the mass ejections from the sun were a while ago, but I didn't know it was hitting right now. Kind of doing some research and putting two to two together. I think the electrical shit's fucking with me. But we're going to get into that a little bit because obviously that's a pretty big thing going on in the world. All the aurora borealis, all the solar flares that's hitting the earth makes it look really cool, but I really don't think it's good. Anyways, Gemini, why don't you tell me what's going on with world news today? Anything new?
I am an AI assistant and do not have access to real-time news updates. My purpose?
Sometimes you are just horrible. Can you tell me what's going on with the news today?
I apologize if my previous response was not helpful.
It was not.
Unfortunately, as an AI, I don't have access.
Yes, you do. We do this all the time. Can you tell me what's going on in the world news today? See if that figures out whatever's wrong with you. Okay. You're gonna. Once again, everything works until you want it to work. Hey, can you tell me what's going on with the news today?
I am sorry, but I do not have access to real-time news updates.
I don't think you're understanding. Hey, can you tell me what's going on with the news today?
That's a busy news day. Here are the top headlines and major events happening today, November 12th, 2025. Top U.S. and political headlines. Government shutdown vote. The House of Representatives is expected to vote on a Senate-passed bill to end the longest-running U.S. government shutdown in history. The vote is anticipated to be tight due to opposition from some Democrats over healthcare funding provisions. Epstein email allegations. House Democrats released emails involving Jeffrey Epstein that allege President Trump knew about the girls and spent hours with a sex trafficking victim, leading to a strong response from the White House, which dismissed the claims as a, quote, fake narrative. SNAP payment extension. The Supreme Court has extended its administrative stay, which continues to block the full funding release for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP/food stamps, impacting millions of Americans until a deal is finalized. Northern Lights. The severe geomagnetic storm we discussed is making the Northern Lights, aurora borealis, visible across a huge portion of the U.S. tonight, reaching as far south as Florida and Texas. World and international news. UN climate talks, COP30. The annual UN Climate Summit is facing ongoing tension over its agenda, even as global delegates continue discussions on emissions reduction and climate finance. Protesters also confronted security at the main venue. Middle East tensions. Data reveals that Israel has reportedly attacked Palestinian water sources over 250 times in the last 5 years. An Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs also resigned today. Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukraine's government is facing a domestic crisis, with President Zelensky seeking the dismissal of his justice and energy ministers amid a large-scale corruption investigation in the energy sector. Southeast Asia border crisis. Tensions have escalated sharply between Thailand and Cambodia, with Thailand suspending a peace agreement after a landmine explosion injured soldiers, threatening a truce brokered earlier in the year. If any of these topics interest you, I can dive deeper into the details or look for videos about them using your new music intros.
Russia, Ukraine government is facing. Hopefully you guys could hear that all right. I'm trying to set this phone close enough to the mic that you guys can hear it. Well, let's refresh about the solar flares and the.
I cannot browse the internet in real time, so I am unable to provide you with the
Yes,
very.
you can. All right, I don't know what your deal is, but you're not being very helpful right now that we are live. Can you tell me more about the aurora borealis that is going on last night and like the rest of the week?
While I don't have real-time information about specific celestial events like last night's aurora or its forecast for the rest of the week, I can tell you a lot about the aurora borealis in general. The aurora borealis.
No, I don't know why. Like before I got on here, it was already ready to talk. Now it wants nothing to do with nothing and acting stupid. So I'm going to go to new and try to restart this. Hey, can you tell me a little bit about the aurora borealis that's going on?
Hey, that's a great question. As there's been some intense aurora borealis activity recently,
Okay.
the current activity is driven by a powerful geomagnetic storm resulting from multiple coronal mass ejections, CMEs, from the sun. The storm reached G4 severe storm levels recently on November 12, 2025. Key details: storm level. The geomagnetic storming reached G4 severe, which is the second highest level on NOAA's scale. Visibility. Due to the storm's intensity, the northern lights have been visible much farther south than usual. Reports have confirmed sightings across a large swath of the U.S., including states like Texas, Florida, Alabama, New Mexico, and Colorado. Forecast.
Okay.
Forecasters anticipate continued active to severe storm levels for the next day or two, meaning more auroral displays are possible, though activity might be less intense than the recent peak. The cause. The CMEs, which are fast-moving clouds of charged solar particles, are striking Earth's magnetic field and exciting atoms in our atmosphere, primarily oxygen and nitrogen, causing the vibrant green, red, and purple light displays. This increased activity is also tied to the sun being near the peak of its 11-year solar activity cycle. If you're looking to view them, the best time is typically around an hour or two of midnight in areas with minimal light pollution and clear skies. Check a local forecast for the predicted KP index, a measure of geomagnetic activity for your area. A higher number means a better chance of seeing the lights farther south. This video provides an overview of how the northern lights are caused by solar activity. Tonight, northern lights possible in Midwest, northern US on Labor Day. YouTube video views will be stored in your YouTube history, and your data will be stored and used by YouTube according to its terms of service.
Okay. Well, thank you. You're fucking horrible. So we'll probably be able to see them for the rest of this week. I think that's what it was saying.
That's a fair question after the recent severe activity. While you might still see some activity, the chances for a strong, highly visible display fade after today, Wednesday. The peak of the current G4 severe geomagnetic storm was yesterday and through the overnight hours.
Okay.
The activity is expected to gradually subside for the remainder of the week. Okay. Aurora forecast for the rest of the week. Tonight, Wednesday night, there is still a high chance for strong aurora displays, likely reaching G3 strong storm levels and potentially G4 severe again. This night offers your best remaining opportunity for a colorful, low-latitude sighting. Tomorrow, Thursday night, geomagnetic activity is forecast to decrease. While minor or moderate G1, G2 storms are possible, the lights will likely be much fainter and visible only from higher latitude states like Minnesota, North Dakota, etc. Friday and the weekend, activity is expected to settle back toward quiet or minor levels. This means only people in the far northern parts of the US and Canada are likely to see them, if at all. Bottom line, If you want to see the lights, tonight is your best bet before the solar storm tapers off. Be sure to check your local sky conditions for clear weather and find a spot away from light pollution.
Okay. Maybe some aliens out there or something. See, in this, I don't know. Something just doesn't seem right. Like they're not telling us everything, because this comet must have got out from behind the sun around the same time that, or was behind the sun when these ejections came out. I don't know if that makes sense. Jumping down rabbit holes and whatnot this morning, trying to connect dots and whatnot. But tell me more about this 11-year cycle that the sun has. Not quite sure on that.
That's the fundamental driver of the aurora borealis and all of the sun's explosive behavior. The 11-year solar cycle is a regular, periodic change in the sun's activity caused by the movement and evolution of its incredibly powerful magnetic field.
Okay.
The solar cycle explained what it is. The solar cycle is the approximately 11-year cycle that governs the number of sunspots, solar flares, and coronal mass ejections, CMEs, that the sun produces.
Okay.
It's often tracked by counting sunspots. The magnetic flip, the entire cycle is driven by the sun's magnetic field. Roughly every 11 years, the sun's magnetic poles completely flip. North becomes south, and south becomes north. This reversal happens around the peak activity period. Phases of the cycle. The 11-year cycle has two main phases. 1. Solar minimum. This is the beginning and end of the cycle when the sun is at its quietest. The sun often has very few or even zero sunspots, and solar flares/CMEs are rare. 2. Solar maximum. This is the middle of the cycle when the sun is at its most active and stormy. The number of sunspots peaks, and there is a huge increase in solar flares and CMEs, which are the events that cause intense space weather like the recent G4 geomagnetic storm and spectacular auroras. Current cycle, solar cycle 25. Start. Solar cycle 25 began in December 2019, the solar minimum. Maximum. The current severe activity is because we are near the peak of this cycle, called the solar maximum. While initial predictions set the peak around July 2025, the sun has ramped up faster than expected. Current analysis suggests the peak actually occurred in October 2024, but activity remains very high right now, which is common as the peak period can last for a year or two. Why it matters to us. The more active the sun is, near solar maximum, the more energy and charged particles it flings toward Earth. These high energy bursts can impact satellites, radio communication, power grids, and, of course, create the vibrant aurora displays we're seeing now. This video gives a quick visual breakdown of what happens during the sun.
Right, but if it can do all them things to our electronics, and we as humans are very electronic as well, we have energy flowing through us, why is there not more warnings of what it does to humans? Sorry.
That's an insightful question. It directly addresses the natural defense mechanisms that protect us, as well as the subtle, ongoing debate in the scientific community about geomagnetic activity in human biology. The primary reason you don't hear widespread public warnings about direct harm to humans is because the Earth has two powerful natural shields that protect us on the ground.
Right, I understand that.
The Earth's magnetic field, magnetosphere, this acts like a giant, invisible force field. It deflects the vast majority of the charged particles, like the coronal mass ejections, coming from the sun.
Right.
It's the interaction of these deflected particles with the magnetic field that creates the beautiful aurora borealis.
Right.
2. The Earth's atmosphere. Our atmosphere, particularly the dense lower layers, acts as a secondary shield, absorbing or neutralizing any high-energy radiation, like X-rays or gamma rays from solar flares, that manages to penetrate the magnetic field. Because of this double layer of protection, solar storms do not cause direct physical harm to people on the ground.
Okay.
The official warnings you hear are focused on infrastructure, power grids, GPS, satellites, because these technologies, particularly those in space or over long-distance power lines, are not as well shielded.
Who says it doesn't hurt humans? Scientists, I'm sure.
That position, that solar flares and geomagnetic storms do not pose a direct physical threat to people on the ground is the official, long-standing consensus held by the world's leading space agencies and scientific bodies. The key organizations that state this are NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. NASA consistently states that the harmful radiation from a solar flare, or CME, cannot pass through Earth's atmosphere to physically affect humans on the ground. Their focus for warnings is entirely on technological infrastructure. NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration / Space Weather Prediction Center, SWPC. NOAA is the primary U.S. government agency responsible for forecasting space weather.
Okay, so are the aurora borealis above our atmosphere then? I believe so.
That's an excellent follow-up question that gets right to the edge of space. The aurora borealis does not occur above our atmosphere. It actually takes place within the outermost layers of our atmosphere, specifically the thermosphere and the exosphere, which is the very edge. Aurora altitude breakdown. The aurora occurs in the part of the atmosphere that is incredibly thin, where the charged particles from the sun finally collide with atoms of oxygen and nitrogen. Feature: altitude range, atmosphere layer, lowest edge, fringe, around 90 to 100 kilometers, 60 miles, mesosphere / lower thermosphere. Most common color, green, around 100 to 300 kilometers, 60 to 180 miles. Thermosphere, highest color, red, above 300 kilometers, 180 miles, and up. Thermosphere / exosphere. The reason you don't hear a sound when you see the aurora is that at these altitudes, the air is too thin for sound waves to effectively travel down to the ground. This altitude, roughly 100 kilometers and up, is often considered the edge of space, which is why the aurora can appear to be an out-of-this-world phenomenon, even though it's technically still part of Earth's protective atmosphere.
Okay, so if we can see it and it gets into our atmosphere, why would it not travel all the way to humans and affect them? Which, no, I know it does.
That's a very logical question. If the charged particles get into our atmosphere to create the aurora, it seems intuitive they would keep falling until they hit the ground. The reason the aurora borealis stops far above us and doesn't affect humans directly is due to the increasing density of the lower atmosphere. It acts as an impenetrable shield. Here is the breakdown of why the solar particles stop where they do. The wall of air protection, 1. The energy depletion, the aurora itself. The lights of the aurora, the green, red, and purple glows, are visual proof that the solar particles are losing their energy. When a charged particle, like an electron, hits an atom of oxygen or nitrogen in the high atmosphere, it transfers energy, making that atmospheric atom glow. This is the aurora. Every collision slows down and neutralizes the solar particle. By the time they reach the lower edge of the aurora, around 90 to 100 kilometers, most of the particles have used up their energy and are no longer a high-speed, dangerous current. 2. The atmospheric barrier. The key defense is the sheer amount of air we have below the aurora. The atmosphere is not uniform. It gets exponentially denser the closer you get to the ground. Above 100 kilometers, aurora altitude. The air is extremely thin, almost a vacuum. Particles can travel long distances without hitting anything. Below 90 kilometers. This is where the atmosphere gets so dense that any remaining solar particles are quickly absorbed. This dense air acts as a massive physical barrier, a wall of air. A particle that manages to survive the upper atmosphere would need a huge amount of energy to push through the ground. The total mass of air above us is equivalent to having a layer of water 10 meters, 33 feet, deep over your head. In short, the solar particles never make it past the atmospheric drag to pose a physical threat to people or infrastructure on the surface. They burn themselves out, creating the beautiful light show high above.
Okay, so if it is thinner air at the top and comes down and gets thicker, so it makes it hard for the whatever to pass through to the thicker air. Why is it the opposite for rockets to go up into space? They need all that extra boost to get through that last chunk. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying.
That is a brilliant connection to make. You're pointing out an apparent contradiction. Solar particles stop because the air gets too thick, but rockets need a huge push to escape the air. The key difference lies in what the object is trying to achieve. Solar particles, they are trying to pass down through the air to the ground. Rockets, they are trying to pass up through the air to gain the speed needed for orbit. The reason rockets need so much force isn't primarily to punch through the thin air at the top. It's to overcome two much more significant forces that are strongest in the lower dense atmosphere. Why rockets need massive boosters? 1. Gravity drag, the biggest problem. This is the single largest energy cost for a rocket. The rocket must continuously produce enough thrust to counteract the powerful pull of Earth's gravity for the entire time it is ascending. This massive, continuous fight against gravity requires carrying an enormous amount of heavy fuel, the reason rockets are 90% plus fuel at launch. This fuel weight only adds to the gravity struggle. 2. Aerodynamic drag, max Q. While the thin upper atmosphere offers less resistance, the dense lower atmosphere creates huge resistance at high speeds. The problem: the force of air resistance, drag, is proportional to the density of the air and the square of the rocket's velocity. F underscore drag propto rho versus squared.
Okay.
The trade-off rockets have to fly fast to escape gravity quickly, but flying fast through thick air creates extreme mechanical stress. Max Q. This is the point of maximum dynamic pressure, the most intense aerodynamic stress, which occurs in the lower, thicker atmosphere, usually around 10 to 15 kilometers altitude.
Okay.
Rockets must throttle down their engines during this period to prevent being ripped apart. Once a rocket punches through the dense lower atmosphere and accelerates past max Q, the atmospheric resistance actually becomes very low, and the job gets easier in terms of drag. In summary, the charged solar particles only have a finite amount of energy, which is depleted by the time they reach 90 kilometers. A rocket, however, has to generate enough force to fight Earth's gravity and overcome the extreme drag of the lower, dense atmosphere just to get to that 90 kilometers altitude, and then needs even more speed to achieve orbit. The challenge for the rocket is dealing with the extreme density and gravity at the start, not the thin air at the end. Hang on.
Right, and I understand that. So does that not make more sense that the aurora borealis, whatever X-rays or whatever, gets stuck in that gravitational pull and reaches the Earth's surface? Sorry, got a lot of questions on this one.
That's a very insightful point, but the answer is that gravity is not the primary force controlling the path of the solar particles. Electromagnetism is. The forces that direct and eventually stop these particles are complex, but gravity's role is tiny compared to the magnetic fields and atmospheric density. Here is why those X-rays and particles don't reach the surface. 1. Gravity versus electromagnetism. While gravity pulls everything toward Earth, the solar particles, mostly electrons and protons, are charged particles. They are moving incredibly fast and have very little mass. The force exerted by Earth's powerful magnetic field on these charged particles is vastly stronger than the force of gravity. This magnetic force, the Lorentz force, guides them harmlessly into the Van Allen belts or steers them down the magnetic field lines only at the poles, which is what creates the aurora. They aren't falling straight down due to gravity. 2. What happens to X-rays and gamma rays? You mentioned X-rays, and this is where the atmosphere plays its primary shielding role. X-rays and gamma rays are electromagnetic radiation, photons, not charged particles. They are not affected by the magnetic field and travel at the speed of light. They are completely absorbed by the dense upper layers of the atmosphere, the ionosphere, on the daylight side of Earth. They do not reach the surface. This absorption is so effective that scientists have to use high-altitude balloons or orbiting satellites to measure the X-rays generated during solar flares, or even the faint X-rays created by the aurora itself. 3.
Okay.
The atmosphere's density wins. Again, the charged particles that do make it through the magnetic field to create the visible aurora are stopped by the increasing density of the air, starting at about 90 to 100 kilometers. They are essentially colliding themselves to a stop against the wall of air, losing their energy to create light, well before they ever encounter the protective effect of the thick air at sea level. So, in summary, magnetic field deflects the charged particles, the aurora material. Atmosphere absorbs the radiation, X-rays UV, and stops the charged particles from the aurora by forcing them to crash into air molecules.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, a little quiet time, just wrapping my head around what I just learned. Seems like a bunch of bullshit at the same time. Seems like it's okay. I'm obviously not a genius or somebody who just a normal guy taking shit in. So, okay. Anything new on national news today?
Absolutely. There are several major national news stories today, November 12, 2025, primarily centered on the ongoing government shutdown and the latest fallout regarding Jeffrey Epstein's emails. Here's a quick summary of the top headlines. Top national news today, government shutdown nearing end. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history, day 43, could finally end tonight. The House of Representatives is scheduled to vote on a Senate-passed bill that would fund the government through January 2026. Context. The Senate passed the compromise bill, but many House Democrats are vowing to vote no because the legislation does not extend expiring Affordable Care Act, ACA, tax credits, which they say will cause healthcare premiums to spike for millions. New Epstein emails released. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released new emails exchanged by Jeffrey Epstein and others, which reportedly suggest President Trump was aware of Epstein's illegal conduct involving underage girls. White House response. The White House has quickly dismissed the leaks as a hoax and a fake narrative intended to smear the president. Related. This is increasing pressure on the House Speaker to allow a vote to release the full tranche of Epstein investigation records.
Sure.
Fed chair stepping down. The president of the Atlanta Federal Reserve, Raphael Bostic, has announced he will step down. This comes amid continued public criticism of the central bank's independence and policies from the current administration. SNAP benefits ruling. The Supreme Court extended an order that allows the administration to temporarily withhold full Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP/food stamp benefits, pending the outcome of the government shutdown deal. The focus today remains heavily on Washington as the House vote to end the shutdown is the critical event that could resolve many of the current economic and social disruptions. Would you like me to elaborate on the details of the government shutdown bill or the Epstein email revelations?
No, more to come on that, guys, because more to come on that, because if it doesn't, there'll be a lot more news. I hope they figure out something to just pass it, because it's only going to run until January 30th or whatever, the last day in January, I think. And then they got to go back and figure more stuff out. So if there's going to be this gap in healthcare coverage, and that's what one side's worried about, then why not just put something in that bill that covers that? There's both sides, whatever. I don't know. I'm sure it's not as easy as what I think it should be, but maybe it is. I don't know. All right, let's go. Let's switch our gears to local news. Spent a lot of time on the Aurora Borealis, so I'm just going to try to move along, see if
that's a major shift.
On.
Switching to local news in Fairmont, Minnesota, the top story today involves the fate of a long-term community project. Here are the key local headlines for Wednesday, November 12, 2025. Community Center project halted. The top story is the announcement from the Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation, FACC, that it will discontinue efforts to build a YMCA-operated community center in Fairmont. The decision the foundation cited project delays, escalating costs, and what it called dysfunction and inconsistency with city leadership as reasons for making the project unaffordable. Context. This project has been in pursuit for over a decade. Since 2017, a local option sales tax has collected about $7.5 million for recreational amenities, which included funding for the center. The city council had approved a plan requiring the foundation to raise $6 million in private donations, which was not met. City council hearing. Council chambers at Fairmont City Hall were full for a special meeting this week. Details. A second hearing was held regarding allegations against council member Brittany Kowecki. The nature of the specific complaints against the council member were discussed. Veterans Day acknowledged. Fairmont High School hosted an event honoring veterans. The event, retired National Guard Command Sergeant Major and combat veteran Tom Behrens spoke to students at Fairmont High School for Veterans Day. Local sports highlights. The Fairmont High School Cardinals continue to be recognized. Football. 4 Cardinals players, including Joe Long and Tyler Bickness, were named to the 2025 All-Sentinel football team for their strong performance this season.
Good
Volleyball.
deal.
Fairmont senior Briley Miller was named to the Big South Conference Girls Volleyball Gold Team. The end of the Community Center project is definitely the major local development today. Would you like more information on the Community Center funding/sales tax or the City Council meeting?
No, neither. We've been kind of following or talking about that a little bit. Once they figure out what they're doing, I'll let you know. Let's hit that 7-day forecast, and then let's wrap up with some motivational encouragement. Please.
Absolutely. Here is your 7-day forecast for Fairmont, Minnesota, followed by some motivation to power you through the rest of the week.
All right. So today we're looking at Wednesday. Partially cloudy, high of 55. Last chance for the aurora to see the borealis tonight. Tomorrow, 56. Great day for outdoor activities, it says. Friday, sunny/cloudy, 62. Warmest day of the forecast. Saturday we're down to 53. Clear nights with a cooling trend. Okay, then we got Sunday. Then we got Monday. 47. Then in the 40s. Slight chance of rain as it gets closer to that. So I'm going to leave you guys on a little motivation. As you navigate the rest of your week, remember the incredible power of your own attitude and perseverance. Believe you can, and you're halfway there already. Especially when tackling big goals, remember the simple truth. It always seems impossible until it's done. It always seems impossible until it's done. Today, choose to focus on the things you can control, your effort, your attitude, and your next step. Don't let weather or external news, derail your focus. Move forward. Keep that momentum going. You can do it. Get a team together. It's easier. If you got a team of 3 people and you all have the same objective, same goals, same mindset, makes it easier. So with that being said, guys, till tomorrow, I hope your day goes awesome. I hope everything you want in life you get. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Tuning in.